Oh my God, hi. Please do not judge my hair today. I don't know what it's gonna look like by the end of this video. To be quite frank with you, my hair's not braided under here and I look like the peanut people from Proud Family movie, and I don't want to talk about it because y'all want the video up, right? I didn't have time to get my hair washed and braided by somebody else because I was too busy getting flued out to Austin for South by Southwest. I just got back. It was a fun time. By the way, hi, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, Home Skillet Biscuit? Happy Saturday. If you don't know what Saturday is, it's when I do a little something called Bad Movies in a Beat, the series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting my makeup on. But with that said, I am most likely not going to be monetized by the end of this video, so we're going to send it over to Admiral Kenny. Something tells me that when we get around to her popping her titty out and breastfeeding them, I think I'm kind of pushing it. So sending it over to Admiral Kenny. Thank you. Hello everyone, it's Admiral Kenny, and today's video is sponsored by PayPal Honey. If you're anything like me, you're online shopping kind of impulsive, but you end up making a purchase and you're like, man, that was more money than I was expecting to spend today. And then you find out right after you get that confirmation email that there was actually a coupon code that could have saved you 50%. Then you just kind of die on the inside. Well, that's where Honey comes in. It's a little button on the top of your browser that you use whenever you're shopping at places you're already shopping at. And then it automatically searches the coupon codes on that website so that you can walk away with the best deal. We're slowly starting to enter into spring here in Michigan, which means I need to do my seasonal buying of new scents, lotions, candles, body washes. I'll collect them and never get around to using them because I just like to hoard things, but at least I'm doing it on discount. Save me a pretty penny. It's just cool to buy something that you were gonna buy anyway and then save like 30 bucks or something on it. And 30 bucks isn't something to scoff at. You can buy a whole pack of eggs these days with that. So if you would like to check out Honey, it's free to do so. You can add it to your browser at joinhoney.com/KennyJD down in the description box. And when you guys click on it, it really helps the channel. So I really appreciate it. And it makes people want to keep working with me. So click it. Save you some dollars. Save you some coin. Big thanks to Honey for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. Last week, we didn't do a movie. We did another tier list. We did the second bad movie tier list, Electric Boogaloo. We didn't talk about Electric Boogaloo, but we did a tier list to Electric Boogaloo. Anyway, it was fun. I love doing tier lists. They're very, I needed to do a quick video before it flying out, but it was a lot of fun. If you didn't see that, that'll be linked up above, or you can check it out on the Bad Movies in a Bait playlist, baby. And this week, oh good. This week, we're talking about a film that was recommended by one of my managers, Cole. Thanks, Cole. Honestly, I could make like a whole sub-series within Bad Movies in a Beat called Movies That Cole Wanted Me to Watch. And today we're talking about something that he said, I need you to watch this. Don't go in with any expectations. Don't watch a trailer if you can avoid it. I want your just like blank reaction. If you guys recall, he also recommended I See Barbarian, a movie that left me a bit conflicted on whether or not I liked it or not. And today we're talking about another movie he recommended, and this one arguably even more so. Today we're talking about Infinity Pool. Did that come out this year or was that the tail end of last year? I don't remember. Oh, okay, so it was in January. Starring Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård, who is brother to Bill Skarsgård, who was in Barbarian, and he was the one that I made the joke saying that he was discount Everton Peters because I just like to titillate. I like to galvanize. I like to piss people off. It's a joke, by the way. Calm down. They do both have that like dead in the eyes type thing. I hope they're both okay. I hope y'all are really getting therapized because you seem to be going through a lot, both of y'all. But yeah, also Alexander after this. I hope, Mia, everyone. I hope everyone's thoroughly therapized because Jesus, it's just another episode of Kendall thinking two white men that look nothing alike look alike. Should I remind you of the Liam Neeson and Rafe Fiennes? I saw another movie cover, this time with Liam Neeson, and I thought it was Rafe Fiennes. I'm not kidding. I can't tell the difference between the two. This wasn't a joke I was making. But yeah, I went in theaters to watch this movie, again, off of Cole's recommendation. And I'm starting to notice like a general trend with movies that Cole recommends me. He seems to really enjoy a queasy movie, a movie that makes you feel sick physically. Not necessarily because it's so scary, Or, and you know, I guess to some people it would be disturbing enough to elicit that feeling. But there's something just off kilter about, just a little off about every film that he sent me. Arguably good skill set of a horror film or a thriller film to elicit that very like physical, visceral feeling in me, to feel physically sick. But I gotta admit, I don't really go to the theater to feel that way. It's something distinct from feeling fear or excitement or entertainment. There's something very like queasy about this movie, especially in a theater where you have, you know, giant booming sound systems and this giant screen, and you have a film that's entire purpose with its sound engineering and its lighting and its camera work, its entire purpose is to make you feel unease, but not because it's a thriller, but like there's something sicky, there's something sick about it, like physically stomach turning about it. And I say that to say I hated this movie for the first like 90 minutes of it. But I have since watched the film several times in my own home, and I do find that either because it's not the first time I'm seeing this movie, or just because we're in my home and it's this like familiar location, I'm not feeling that exact same very visceral, awful feeling like tangibly, physically, and that makes me enjoy the movie a little better. But when watching it in theaters, the first 90 minutes, I am not joking when I say this, I wanted to peel my eyes out. It made me itch. The movie kind of has this mind-numbing lack of sensorial stimuli for the first sizable chunk of time. Everyone's relatively quiet. There's not a whole lot of music outside of these kind of like gnawing sounds. And then there's a lot of these scenes that contrast with that are super trippy. They're full-on trip scenes. Big warning, if you have any like flash sensitivity, I'm gonna try to avoid showing in detail most of those scenes because they could trigger you. But I will try to say a verbal flash warning if I can't avoid it. And again, that like I can't explain it. That contrast was the most difficult thing for me to sit through, especially again in the theater where you're just hearing I don't know, maybe it's because I'm easily sensorily overloaded. Is that an ADHD thing? I'm gonna talk to my doctor about that. But this movie, something flips and I'm just like, and I dead ass wanted to walk out of the theater. I could not explain the sensation anything beyond that, but I toughed it out. Because that last like 30 minutes, things finally started to get interesting to me. I also found the beginning of the movie incredibly boring. It was hard to even like enjoy any story because I was being sensorily overloaded. But by the time we get to the last, say, 30 minutes of the movie, when there's a story that's kind of cemented and it's not being undermined, for lack of a better word, by all the trippiness, I was like, oh, this movie's not bad. It was just incredibly distracting. By the time we get to the ending scene, it's not that I walked away saying I didn't like the movie. I walked away saying, wow, I had to really tough out that first hour and a half to get to a movie. And it's hard to decide whether or not I think the struggle was worth it. With that said, now that I'm like, I know what I'm going into, I find that I'm liking the movie more with each subsequent watch. But you shouldn't have to work that hard. That once I started this film, I realized that I had actually already seen the trailer for it while going to see another movie. And I was reminded of the scene of Mia Goth making her Mia Goth noises. I really need to do a video on Pearl. Remind me. Get around to talking about Pearl, because I really like that movie. And I really like Mia Goth. I'm curious to see what she's doing in other things. But yeah, I remember the trailer of her, you know, holding the gun and going, Jamesy! Jamesy! Like, not me surprising myself. Okay, I'm coming for your bag, Miss Goth. Anyway, but yeah, I knew it was gonna be some weird shit because Mia Goth is in it. So, if you don't know what the movie is about, the film follows novelist James Foster and his wife Em as they travel to a fictional resort island of Litoka. They go in order for him to perhaps rediscover some inspiration for his next book, as he hasn't been able to write a sophomore novel since his first novel 6 years ago, and that novel wasn't particularly well received, so he's feeling kind of down on his luck and lacking aspiration, inspiration, So they ventured here to see what he could discover to inspire him. While there, they meet the mysterious Gabby, played by Mia Goth, and she is a fan of James' book. Immediately makes her interesting to him, and she eventually invites him and his wife to hang out with them on the island. When James accidentally kills a local farmer while driving back to the resort, he is given the unbelievable choice between either being put to death for killing this man or have an exact clone of him made that will be killed in his place. This movie has a lot to do with hedonism, depravity, classism, the rich kind of being able to get away with whatever they want, nepotism. I'd imagine that the director was kind of working through some of his thoughts around that, considering he is a Nepo baby. But he's talented, but he's still a Nepo baby, so I guess that's him working through some thoughts in regards to that. And I think those core elements or core questions are quite interesting. And even the mechanisms by which it decided to explore them, though again viscerally annoying and creative, unique, whatever, but this movie is a lot. So if you decide to venture into this, please be prepared. You going into some shit. But I've been talking for far too long, so let's get into the movie itself. This is Infinity Pool 2023. Are these travel sizes? They're so Widdle! Oh my god, we're so Wibble! Girl, that's the same color as me. That didn't do shit. So the movie begins and we meet James and his wife. The first thing I notice about this film is M's very strange accent.
There's a boat tour of the Trakla Island formations this afternoon. I was thinking we could go on that and make reservations in town for dinner. We could try the Chinese place.
I don't know to what degree it is real. Is it an accident? Was it on purpose? I don't know. It's incredibly distracting. Some moments she sounds British. Some moments she sounds Australian. Some moments she sounds American. I don't know what's going on or if it was on purpose, but whatever it is incredibly distracting. Again, this movie's very trippy. I don't know if they did that on purpose, was it supposed to be indicative of something? But the movie begins with them waking up at the resort that they're visiting in order to get away and help re-inspire James to write his next book. And the music of the opening scene of them going to breakfast has this, again, incredibly awful, trippy sound. It's this queasy, headache-inducing, just gnawing, awful sound. Again, I don't know if I'm more sensitive to that than the average person. And then you combine this with this very trippy camera work, and I was just like, oh. Hard cut to this face. These are the tribal masks of the island and have been, commodified, cheapened into just like tourist attractions and souvenirs. One of the kind of themes of this movie is tourism, particularly when people from presumably Western white rich nations come over to visit these islands and over, even though this is a fictional place. But on this island, there are locals that are very vocal about their disapproval of tourists coming in and treating the area like shit and then leaving. And we see that in a scene where one of the locals comes onto the resort driving an ATV and running over a lot of the tourists' things as they lay out on the beach. During this demonstration is when we meet Gabby.
He's saying that he wants to put a long knife right through her, and after you die, he'll hang your body at the airport to scare off the other tourists.
Seems a bit extreme.
Why was that hot to him? Like, we need to start asking ourselves, was it a kink or a cry for help? Because what was that? But he finds this weird bitch incredibly alluring. She goes up to him, recognizing him, and compliments and says how much she's a fan of his first book. And being that James wasn't very well received for his first book, this is particularly validating for him. Because again, nobody liked his book, but it was so poorly received that it really rocked James's confidence in being a writer. And he hasn't written anything else in over 6 years because of it. But he finds this weird bitch incredibly alluring. So when she invites him to dinner to go out with her partner and his partner, they all go out together, he's like, absolutely. They go to dinner to an unabashedly appropriated Chinese restaurant. And there we learn more about this weird ass couple. Alvin is an architect. Gabby is a commercial actress. And M is rich. And she's pretty shitty about it, actually.
You married rich.
Good for an artist to have a patron, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm in danger of becoming a charitable organization at this point.
She does not like him. Like, why are y'all together? But they have fun the rest of the night, chatting, dancing. But it would seem pretty early that there is some chemistry between Gabby and James. The next day, Gabby and Albin invite them out to go to the beach just outside of the resort. Something that M isn't particularly a fan of the concept of doing. One, the resort kind of forbids them from doing so, saying that the island is incredibly dangerous, especially to tourists. So they would be putting themselves in harm's way by leaving the resort. But James is pretty adamant. He says they seem cool. We've made them as friends. You know, they come here all the time. They've been here year after year. They know the area. Let's trust them. But they rent a car from one of the resort people. Apparently they have an inn with somebody there. But they take the car out of the resort and go up the coastline while that horrible, queasy, again, dissonant music plays. Like, I know, I get it. It's supposed to be uneasy and unwelcoming and uncomfortable. But my God, it's fucking hell. I don't know how they found the exact frequency to piss me off, but they did. It's like a dog whistle. I'm just in there like, ah! But they get to the beach, they relax, they grill sausages. They jokingly remark about cutting off James's balls. You know, just casual conversation. M jokes, I don't know how much of a joke it is, but she jokes about how the only reason she's with James is because she has daddy issues and wanted to make him mad because he's like a titan of publishing or something. And he never wanted her to get with an author, and that's the first thing she did was get with the least talented man she could find. She don't say exactly that, but she might as well. Like, damn, again, you don't like him. Like, just let him go. But they're having a good time getting some sun. Gabby gives James a surprise handsy while he's going to pee. You know, just chill things. In case you don't hear my facetiousness, that is not cool. That's assault, by the way. Okay, this shit is not blending great. So I'm gonna just cover it in glitter and just hope for the best. That's what I do with all my life's problems, is just cover it in glitter and hope for the best. But yeah, Gabby a weird bitch. And the scene is just awful. Including but not limited to they show us the cum like dribbling down on the rocks. And apparently in the uncut one, we see whole on shaft. Which at that point we might as well. This is only the second time I've seen in a movie. The first time was in X, if I remember correctly. So another movie with Mia. So I guess we just showing cum now, okay. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm just like, just let us know. But yeah, after that, they just continue the day as if nothing happened and decide to drive back to the resort. James offers to drive, saying that he is, you know, the most sober of all of them and that. But while driving back, the headlights instantly. Time kind of stops for a bit and they're just staring at him like, oh my God, I didn't see him. What do we do? M and James particularly are losing their minds. M is like, we should call somebody. We should call the police. We should call an ambulance or something, you know? And before they can even consider doing that, here comes Gabby saying, absolutely the fuck not. Hell no. We not a bitch. Him. She calls these people animals. Sounds a little racist to me. She's like, if we called the police, M would be and killed by the morning. We're going home. We'll figure something out, but we're not doing this. So because she seems so resolute, you know, everybody's like, all right, I guess we're going home. So everyone kind of drives back in silence as they get back to the resort with the gates now closed. No one's supposed to leave the resort, like what's going on, and they're like, oh well, it was an accident, please let us back in, we won't leave the resort again. So they're able to get back into the resort, and James and Em are kind of just reeling from the night before, but they go to sleep. But the next morning there's a very strong loud banging at the door. It is the police coming to arrest James for murder. They take James and M into custody, separating them and questioning them about the night prior. In James's interrogation, they tell him that they already know everything that happened because M confessed it in her interrogation, which she sung like a bird right as soon as she got in there. The policeman informs James that in their country, that the sentence for murder or death caused by an otherwise preventable cause, you die, we gonna kill you, because eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, or whatever. Particularly, the eldest son of the victim comes to stab you to death. But for those that can afford it, the government offers this secret deal in which you can have a clone made of you, and that clone can be killed on your behalf. This clone will look exactly like you, have the same memories as you, for all intents and purposes, think that it is you. We'll just do a little boop, boop, bop, bop, and switch root. Obviously, you know, this is a lot, but it doesn't leave him with much of a choice. So James decides to get the clone made. And the clone making process is the first of the trip scenes I was talking about. And it is overstimulating. I don't love trip scenes, again, because I'm a very sensorily overstimulated person. So it wasn't my thing. If you like trip scenes, it's hard for me to say one way or another if it was a good or a bad one, because what makes a good trip scene or a bad trip scene, I don't really know. But thus begins the cloning process, in which he puts a mouthpiece on, stands in red goo, and then begins to trip balls. This is the first of the trip scenes. Again, I'm not a huge trip person, so maybe you'll be into it if you like scenes like this. I'd imagine if you're sober it'd be a lot, but damn, if you doing drugs too and doing this, you gonna trip balls and think you can fly. But within this trip, you see that he's kind of fantasizing about seeing Gabby naked, and she's like dancing for him, you know, so it's obvious that his subconscious, not so subconscious, but his attraction to Gabby is becoming more and more of a forefront of his consciousness. There you have it. The deed is done. The clone has been made, and M and James go to look at the clone. M is like completely horrified by it because it's just weird. James is kind of like, oh, interesting. You're a little weird. The policeman informs them that they have to be present for the execution. We see M and James in the audience preparing to watch as clone James is dressed in kind of this very simple white garb with a hole in the middle that's supposed to be an access point for when he about to get shanked. Because he about to get shanked. In walks the kid with the knife, and the clone starts begging for its life, begging for M particularly to help him, whatever. Which really fucks her up, because it would fuck me up. And then the little boy just starts stabbing. And it's really technicolor and kind of gruesome, and again very jarring when we compare it to the fact that everything else is quite grayscale and sterile outside of the trip scenes. Do not ask me why I did all that just to put a hat on. I don't want to talk about it. It's shameful. I said I look like the peanut people. Don't ask me no damn questions. I'm having a rough week. And if we put a hat on, nobody has to know. But yeah, the clown dead. And they kind of zoom in to James's face in the audience, and you could tell that he weird, because he started to have this like kind of delightful, deceitful smile on his face, and he's sitting there like, ooh, I've duped the system. I got away with it. I got away with murder. It would seem that that's the beginning of him starting to feel a delight in power, which he will be drunkenly falling into as we get later into the movie. In a weird, ironic, kind of hilarious way, after the clone is killed, James and M are gifted an urn full of its ashes. I did giggle. I guess it's really fucked up. And Emma's like, okay, cool, all right. We not going to jail. Let's go to home. What the fuck was that? And James is moving a little too slow for her. He's like, oh no, I seem to have misplaced my passport. Whatever can I do? I guess you'll just have to go back without me. So thus, they're forced to stay in the hotel a little longer. I was actually surprised she decided to stay at all with him, because again, I don't think she liked him, like as a person. But she's like, yeah, I guess guess we're stuck here for a bit. And M starts to vocalize, very disgusted, that James just doesn't seem to be particularly affected by the events that have taken place on this island. Like, he doesn't seem rattled at all by it. And she's like, it's disgusting. It's disgusting that you don't seem to be at all impacted by it. Like, how could you look at that and not feel or do anything? Which, the f was he supposed to do? But I get what she's getting at. She's like, you should be more rattled by this than I am. He's not particularly rattled by it. In fact, it's something that makes him say, hey, maybe I should stay a little bit longer. He goes down to the receptionist desk and he's like, you know, if no one's gonna be in that room, let's extend it. Let's extend it another week. While in the lobby, he reunites with Gabby, who swiftly apologizes and coaxes him into having a drink with her. So when they get that drink, she starts to explain that a few years back, her and Albin were also forced to make that decision that he made to make the clone when 2 workers were accidentally killed while constructing one of Albin's designs of an infinity pool.
He said it!
At another resort. She then's like, hey, you came here for inspiration. And, you know, there's things about this experience that kind of change you forever. There are other people that over the years, me and Albin have met who have also, you know, had clones made. You know, it's kind of like a secret little club, actually. You know, it's the thing that brings them together, this whole watching yourself be violently killed in front of you. She invites him to meet her friends at this villa tonight. They refer to themselves ever so cleverly as zombies. Each of them have had this sort of rebirthing experience. And one of them asks James if he's worried that they actually killed the wrong James. What if they actually killed the real him? An obvious question to ask, but one that this movie doesn't really spend a whole lot of time, you know, interrogating outside of letting the audience kind of mull at that thought themselves. It's a question that the man has been racking his brain about ever since he saw it happen. But before it can get too existential at this here party, James just jokingly says that he can only hope so. Which, of course, is indicative of James not being a particular fan of his former life anyway. M calls him while he's seeing these people, but he doesn't answer. Especially because at that time, Gabby's in his ear, you know, telling him that she sees something incredibly special within him. Like, she's seen his transformation, and she asks him to fully trust her that night. Whenever you watching a movie and Mia Goth is saying to trust her, that's a sign not to, because it's about to get very weird. Just then, one of the zombies shoots a gun into the air that they found from one of the cleaning staff. Tonight will be a night of revelry. The plan for the night is to go into the man's house that got Albin executed originally and steal a medal that he recently received from the city. Just a little break and entering, just a little fun, nothing to get in a tizzy about. But they do threaten to shoot James in case he doesn't come along because you can't give the plan away. Come on now. But luckily for them, he's down as f. They break into a local gift shop, desecrate the souvenirs. I was going to say the like spiritual masks, but at this point they've already been horribly commodified, so I get the joke there. But anyway, they break and enter incredibly loudly for people who are trying to steal shit. They steal the ceremonial masks and they go on a joyride to the man's home. They break into the house with a ruckus. The man was actually mid-coitus when they got there. Poor guy. Really poor guy. They show sorry. I'm trying to not say anything about his penis. It's not right. So I'm going to skip low-hanging fruit on that one. I'm sorry. Anyway, they stick him up. And Gabby suggests that James kills the man, seductively, of course, because everything that she does is like a seductive power play. She grabs his hand and says it would be so easy and not everybody gets a chance like this, you know? But he doesn't do it. So she takes the gun and nearly kills him herself, but they're interrupted by Albin, who is really excited because he went through the man's expensive alcohol and found his cigars. Just then, his security decides to do their job and start shooting at the intruders, in which Albin gets shot in the thigh and they have to make an escape. They bring him back to the resort, and just then M finds them coming in with Albin mid-bleeding from his thigh, all of them wearing tribal masks, and she's like, what the f-? He's like, honey, it's okay. It's okay. Don't No, it's fine. Hard cut, and they've all been arrested. They are about to do the whole, like, you can buy your way out thing. So they're very joking about it. They're just complaining about how inconvenient the entire process is. But in comes the detective and says that they have tested the limits of his patience, of his hospitality, and he's in the mood to make a statement. So they carry them into the execution room, and they do just that. And as they complain about wanting to buy their way out, they're executed. Psych! What do you mean? Money buys everything in the world of capitalism. What? They're actually all in the audience, again, joyously watching themselves be murdered as if it's like a Shakespearean play. Or maybe the clones are in the audience. Who's to say? It is the question that's left to us. They're in the audience having a ball, honey. And at this point, they've just really, like, indulged in the joys of watching their, I guess, theoretically, other versions of themselves die. How artsy. Now in possession of his second urn, he returns home to find that M says that she doesn't care if he doesn't have his passport, she's leaving without him. She has found out that he had already purchased for more time at the resort, and she's just like, rightfully deeply disturbed by the man standing in front of her. But with that incredibly inconvenient thing out of the way, his wife, Gabby goes to James. M is the type of woman that makes men forget that they're strong. Or some bullshit like that, I don't remember it.
Men are trained by women like M to see themselves as weak.
It takes work to undo that, and it takes some blood. And then she kisses him. And then she shows him a new tactic of sorts to reach his baser instincts, in which that is a drug that is only used for spiritual practices on the island. But they use it for the purpose of tripping balls and sucking balls. It's also an aphrodisiac. So they inhale the smoke from the drug and then commence an incredibly long psychedelic orgy scene between Gabby, James, and the rest of the zombies. They were having a lot of fun. Though I'm not a fan of trip scenes, I do feel like of all of them in this movie, this is the one that makes the most sense to me. I think this is the one that's very much so a full descent into hedonism, and it's just and sucking and titties and goo. You know, like 80% of the sex scene, it's mostly just that kind of like rising, I obviously can't show it to you, but this is like rising euphoric high, again, tripping balls, but there's a place in which the scenes just start to kind of devolve, for lack of a better word, into something that is very raw and disgusting and unpleasant. There's a very small, quick scene in which you see a penis inside. And then before you can like really wrap your head around that, you see a nipple, and the nipple starts to ooze goo, and we don't know what goo it is, and it's just a lot of goo. And then someone eats the goo. The scene is a lot, okay? I didn't know if somebody was like licking. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The scene is way more graphic than I'm kind of used to, again, for like R-rated theater releases, but you know. Anyway, after this scene, the movie actually finally starts to pick up. Because again, I told you, all up until this point, I was like, we need something to happen. I realized actually in describing what happens in this movie, it sounds more interesting than it actually is, at least in my opinion. The movie's it lulls. But after this, it would seem that James is fully in his asshole, entitled, shitty era. He's like spitting cherries at people at other tables, breaking things at the buffet table just because he can. And one of the zombies is like, I found out that the reason why you can't get your new passport is because it's being held up by the detective that we talk to in the interrogation scenes all the time. We should go over there and dominate him. Give James a whiff of that good old herb. And then he like roids himself up. Doing a haka, and then he beats the shit out of this man. It's not just beating the shit out of him, it starts to get really nasty. It beats the shit out of him, pours alcohol on him. At some point, him and Album just start pissing on him, and of course all the zombies in the background are cheering in hedonistic approval. And that's when Gabby goes up to the man on the floor, takes his hood off, and it reveals that it is not the detective, it is another clone of James. I laugh, because that's what you get. Because you ain't even one of the crowd. You didn't pay for nothing. That's your wife's money. He's like, oh, I'm in with the in crowd. You're not in the in crowd. They making fun of you. You're the entertainment. embarrassing. Oh my God. So it's now official. James understands that he's not one of them. He's a plaything. He runs out disturbed, dismayed, embarrassed by all the things that he had done for all intents and purposes to himself, right? Very, art. They follow to his balcony and sing songs outside his window, taunting him. And Gabby comes to the door and says, hey, it's just a joke. Apparently they had paid the detective to make a double for them to play around with. And when he doesn't answer the door, she says that it's incredibly unattractive that you're being such a party pooper. And this apparently is the final straw, and he finds his passport, which he had hidden in the bathroom, and decides that he's ready to go the f home. I'd be kind of over it by now as well. He boards a shuttle the next morning to be taken to the airport. But guess who's not really a fan of that? Yes, the zombies. And so they ride alongside him in a car and then shoot through the window. This is where Gabby gives perhaps one of the most iconic, but incredibly annoying lines. I will say this was my favorite scene of the movie, when Gabby gets really Gabby, for lack of a better word. She starts talking a lot, and she's so annoying, but God, is it iconic. Bring out James Foster! He is a lily-livered bedwetter, and he would sell his own mother for horse meat!
Yeah! Jamesy!
Ha! Jamesy! I don't know, bitch. Maybe I should go into acting. That seems to be a natural. What can I say? But Mia Goth, you weird bitch. I don't know whose idea that was. Was that yours? Was that the director's? Whoever. Applaud. I can't wait to spend all these random times in my life to be incredibly annoying to just say, ha! Ooh. He comes out of the shuttle, naturally, and they make him walk back to the hotel as they drive behind him with Gabby on the hood of the car, taunting him, degrading him. This part is funny. I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. Faster! You're real sucky, baby. Real loser. You can't drive. I thought we'd have to do something to get you into trouble, but your dumbass actually did it by yourself.
I can't believe you ran that guy over, James. Do you remember that?
We didn't have to do anything. Oh, and I never read your book. I almost lost it. That was funny. I'm sorry. Because you did all of this for the validation of a person that's never read your book. But then she says, though I haven't read your book, I do have some reviews. And then she starts just reading off all the negative reviews that he got for the book.
Variable sheep. As bad as its title. Newcomer James W. Foster overcompensates with pretension. Sheath is a book that has nothing to say and lacks the words to say it.
Eventually, James decides to make an escape by going to grab the gun from Gabby. He's not able to get it, and they just all kind of ridicule and laugh at him at his feeble attempts at trying to even overpower them. But eventually, he ends up running into the woods, and Gabby ends up shooting him and getting him in the back of the leg. But he's able to get away from them as far as possible. He keeps going until he passes out in front of a farmhouse, possibly the farmhouse of the man that he killed. And they nurse him back to health. He sleeps in their home and has a fever dream about the farmer's son, the one that killed his first clone, about M laughing at how useless he is. They have another trip scene. Oh God, a trip scene, so it's hard to explain, but like he's ripping his own face apart while ripping the kid's face apart and ripping M's face apart. It's weird. And the little boy is like choking him to death, and then he squishes the kid's head like a cantaloupe. Again, really weird. When he awakes, however, and leaves the farm, he is confronted by the zombies again. It's dark and they're outside using nothing but the headlights of their cars to illuminate the scene. Here, Gabby says that this is his final test, his final transformation, the final opportunity to find out what type of creature he really is. They bring out a clone on a leash, naked, and tell him to kill the dog. Only through blood can he release his past. They give him a knife, and he refuses, throwing the knife on the ground, saying, "You do it." But then the dog, quote unquote, attacks him, and he is forced to kill the dog with his bare hands, so riddled with despair that he begins to sob like a... Because Gabby comes up to James, cradles his head in her hands, wipes the blood off of his fist, pops her titty out, rubs the blood on her titty, and then starts breastfeeding him. That's I fucking lost it. That's when the movie broke me, because let me tell you something. I have a very vivid memory of being in the theater for this particular scene. Because up until this point, it's been a lot of weird shit on screen, okay? Again, we had the weird trip scenes, the titty goo. We had a lot going on up until this point, right? But this theater was silent. Nobody made a sound because we were just all watching in awe of like what was going on. But for some reason, the breastfeeding scene is when one girl seated in front of me cracked and start laughing, and the entire room busts out into the most like therapeutic laugh. Like all of us together just broke into that like kind of crazy laugh where you losing your mind a little bit. I had tears dropping. It was a lot. It was a stress relieving cry that can only happen when you've been pulled so tight like a guitar string for an hour and a half, 2 hours at this point. And it was very funny. I'm sorry. But yeah, the next morning, James calls M, telling her that he's returning home as he packs his third urn. After that, he just rides the shuttle with everyone else, the other zombies, and they all act like nothing happened. It's just like a weirdly normal, they're talking about work, rearranging furniture, invoices, monotony. At the airport, you know, Gabby's like, hey, I hope I see you again next year. And James just stays seated as everyone else goes to their respective flights. And there's just a lot of noise. There's a monsoon outside, children running, and everything is just bustling around him until a hard cut to him just being the only person in the airport in complete silence. And the movie ends with him sitting by the beach as the monsoon comes in at the resort as the rain washes over him. Because, like, how do you go back to normal life after that? And that's Infinity Pool. Again, I don't really know if I want to thank Cole for this movie or cuss him out. And this is how I felt about Barbarian. I'm like, what the hell? Here's my thing I'm starting to notice about myself. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can tell other people. I have this thing where I'm like, I'm disgusted. But it is kind of interesting. So give me a little time. I'll probably watch the weird movie 3 more times and then end up liking it. It's just the circle of life at this point. If you've seen Infinity Pool and you have opinions, put those down in the comment section. I'm curious what your thoughts are. My head looks so big in this thing because I have this giant melon wig on because I didn't braid under here. Oh my God, I need to see my hairdresser. Anyway, follow me on my social media, Instagram, Twitter. That's my alarm to go pick up my dog. But yeah, follow me on places. Kenny JD. Yeah. And I'll see you guys next time.